you hear the terms B2B and B2C, and there's really no such thing anymore as B2B or B2C. I mean, there's H to H. It's human to human. Whether you're buying on a website, whether you're buying for yourself a flight or a holiday or some stationery or office supplies, or you're buying for a company, it's the same thing. There is no difference. And the companies that are now understanding how to talk to people, how to communicate, and how to serve them are recognizing that you've got to treat everybody as a human. Forget the idea that it's a business or a B2B or B2C. So you kind of want to get that out of your mind. And it wasn't me who invented this. It was somebody way smarter than me, and I really believe in it. So we've got a bit of a formatting issue there. Here's the thing. Look, this is a great country. And I grew up in Manchester. You can tell from that kind of slightly weird accent. And I now live between London and Chicago, having spent some time in Newport Beach in Southern California and Hong Kong. But we're a country of 63 million people, and we've got this microeconomy here of London where property prices, no one can afford it, and it's kind of all strange. But you just look outside the UK a little bit in terms of what UKTI can help you with, and you look at China, and China has 500 million online buyers. I mean, that's a figure that's kind of hard to even get your head around. I mean, if I asked you who the largest online seller was in the world, I think everyone would probably say Amazon. But Amazon is a seventh of the size of Taobao, which is basically Alibaba's group company that sells online. So we often think of China as a source to buy from, but in terms of opportunity, it's one of the biggest markets, if not the biggest market in the world. So this is all about opportunity and export. Hard to ignore China. The challenge we've got is that we've got these languages and countries, and we've also got generations. I'm 52. At any point you can say, wow, you look so young. But I'm 52, and so I'm kind of what you would call a kind of a young baby boomer. And I have 3 children, 25, 22, and 18. My last one's in university now, so just one more to try and get off the payroll. And they're all millennials. That's what they are. They're millennials. You hear this term millennials. That's people who are kind of 24, plus, that age, that getting into the workforce now. And what's really fascinating is that the majority of business-to-business online buyers are millennials, by the way. 89% of purchases made online are made by millennials. And this is scary, because when I talk to my daughter about her needing to get a car service, she has no clue what I'm even talking about. I mean, she just said to me, I got my car, it went in for a service, and they sent an email back saying, it's been 4 years since it's been here. It hadn't crossed her mind that cars need servicing. Why? Because as a generation, millennials have had everything done for them. Then when they suddenly step into the workplace and dad thinks, okay, well, it's all good, they don't look at it. So millennials is a really interesting thing. And this graphic is great because what we have right now is 3 generations in the workforce for the first time ever. Now, why is that? Well, people are living longer, pensions aren't too great, and people want to enjoy the standard of living. And a lot of people are joining the workforce earlier. So we have 3 generations in the workforce. And so companies, all of us, have this real challenge of trying to shape our messaging to deal with millennials in any shape or size, and what some people call the grey pound, the older people. And what's really happened is that whereas 24-year-olds have been online their whole life, and we'll talk about this some more, my in-laws, who are 75 and 82, they skipped this whole PC to laptop to iPad. They went straight to iPad. And so now you receive emails from your mother-in-law with, the kind of the subject at the bottom and the bit at the top, but they've kind of got this thing whereby everybody's online. And understanding this generational issue gets even more complicated when you look about export. And this is a really challenging part about business, is this issue of communication. You can talk and talk, but maybe people aren't listening. And that's why, websites are so important. What your website says and how you message is just really so important. And it's complex enough doing it here in Manchester or London or Sheffield. And we have a whole different language in Manchester as to we do in London. It's complicated enough. But take that out to more countries, and you have a real challenge. So I just want to talk about this issue of 24-year-olds. They've been online their entire lives. They've never not known the ability to go and search for something, look for something, buy something, find out. And what that does is it makes us all rely heavily on reviews. So before anybody here made this journey today, you researched or booked or did something online to get here. Your hotel, your transport, your train ticket, your lunch, whatever it may be, even maybe this talk. And what's really fascinating is, and it's great that no one's looking at their phones right now, but the minute I finish, the very minute I finish, two things are going to happen. One, you're going to give me a standing ovation, which is going to be great. But the second is you're going to take out your smartphone, and you're going to say, well, what's happened in the last 5 minutes of this international digital life? And if you don't, you're probably actually missing a trick. It's no longer rude. It's actually necessity. And Murray did lose to Djokovic, by the way. But the point is that we're all kind of interested in the whole world that's going on. 24-year-olds spend 89% of the B2B money, and we have to find a way to engage with them. And here's the issue. It's 196 countries, and keeping the politics out of it, I have included Taiwan, but I've not included other things. But there's 196 countries multiplied by millennials versus baby boomers versus Gen X's. And then you say, therefore, you've got such a complicated communication, this complex way of talking to different people in a language they understand and serving people globally. Trust is a tiny word, but the biggest issue we all face in business. And trust is very different in every country. What's appropriate here is different in another country. And it's something that's at the core of what we do as an organization, and it needs to be at the core of what everybody else does. What is trust? It's plausibility. I mean, this advert for Guinness, this was a real advert. Drink Guinness, you're going to be strong. I mean, that's really amazing. And if you actually go back 20 years, maybe 25 years, you would see adverts from tobacco companies saying, cure your cold by smoking. It's actually quite fantastic. And, what was right, but perceived to be right yesterday, is really wrong today. But being plausible, when you're looking to export and open in new markets, you've got to be truthful. Why? Because you can now go on Google Me, find my name, and see exactly what I do. And if you Google my name, the first picture that comes up isn't me. It's actually a criminal in an orange suit. But then you can see. So I can't tell you any lies. I'm married, and I've got 3 kids. It's my second marriage. And I've got 3 stepchildren. It's all there. See me on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever. So what you can't do is call prospective customers or partners or resellers overseas and tell lies. And therefore, trust and honesty is at the core of it. This is my favorite one. Being credible. I mean, yeah, this tiny trick a day to cut down my belly, yeah, I wish. I mean, I really would love that to be the case, but it's just not credible. And selling overseas and expanding your business generally, credibility is at the absolute core. And what we talk about internally is just no middle ground. You're either trustworthy and credible or you're not. Pick one. I mean, it doesn't matter, but just kind of pick one. And I love this graphic because I think, I'm not sure I would have that level of trust, but it really is an important thing is to say, okay, what are you? What are your values and how are you going to talk to people? And why is that? Well, because dissatisfied consumers are going to tell between 9 and 15 people. 13 people will tell more than 20, 30% of people more than 20. Now, why is that? Well, I'm staying in the, what's it called, the hotel just across the road. I can't remember the name of it, the one that's connected, the Metropole, which I've been staying there for, I don't know, 25 years. And it was horrible 25 years ago, and I hope they're listening. I mean, it's just a horrific hotel. There is nothing good in terms of service about that. So why do I stay there? Because I'm trying to think. It's really expensive, the service is horrible, and the rooms are really pokey and small and dark. Now, that's interesting, because maybe there's 25 people there, so I'm telling 25 people, and I'll keep telling them until one day maybe they'll give me a room that's a bit nicer than they give me at the moment. Now, they're just building a beautiful new hotel here on the site, resort, something with a big casino in. Now, what happens? This time next year, you're going to think, oh, I must go to the NEC again, just in case Martin's going to be there. And you're going to go online, you're going to see 2 hotels, both £159 the night. One's going to be the Metropole, and one's going to be the resort hotel. You're going to book the resort hotel, chances are, because I've told you that I had a really bad experience. But that's the same with airlines and restaurants and reviews. And we're living in this world where feedback is instant. So if you upset a customer or something about your product or brand doesn't satisfy what you promised, then they're going to post that online, true or not. In the old days, it was great. You sat there as a CEO of a company and you got your morning post, and there was a letter there. Little old lady writing to you saying, dear managing director, I don't like your product, it's a load of rubbish. And you sent her a box of chocolate and she shut up. I mean, that was the old great world. Now she tweets to her 5,000 followers, and suddenly you've got a whole social media department screaming why we've got to answer this and deal with it. So the reason to serve your customers well is because you have no choice anymore. People are going to tell people. This is kind of what I would say is at the core of everything in terms of selling it either in the UK or overseas or whatever you are. You are the brand, act like it. I mean, that really is what people should wake up every day. And what do I mean by that? Well, we had an internal conference, I don't know, 6-8 weeks ago, and had some of our marketings together. And before I went, I had a quick look on Facebook. And I don't want to embarrass the person, verbatim here, but I just said, has anybody got anything on Facebook that could embarrass the company? Is there anything at all? Everyone says, no, of course not, birthday party, it's all great. And this person had a T-shirt that said, I've got heels bigger than your blank. Now, is that funny? Yes. Is it true? Probably. But the reality is, it brings the company into disrepute. We as a brand, we don't stand for that. It's not what we stand for. We stand for serving our customers, being ethical, proper, and trustworthy. So the very way you present yourself, and first I'll apologize, I'm not dressed in a suit and tie. Why? Because I'm standing in for my wife, and I traveled from Chicago, as you can see, casually. But I'm the brand. I am, in this scenario, artwork tool or whatever. I'm the brand. So whether I tell lies to you, or I'm polite to you, or I ignore you, that's me. And so you have to act like your brand, whatever it is. And that's even harder overseas. It's even harder when you're exporting, because it's too easy to upset someone. And I'll tell you, I used to live in Hong Kong, so a long time ago, 1997. And my very first trip there, I was taken for lunch. We had what I love, and it's inappropriate, but shark's fin soup, and I love this stuff. But I wasn't really sure. I'm Northern. I'm a fish and chips guy. So what do I know from shark's fin soup? And I kind of tasted it as you do, and then pushed it to one side. But that was like a real insult at the time. And my host had gone to the trouble of ordering this most amazing food, and I'd effectively insulted them. And it was only maybe 6 or 7 years later than when we spoke that the person told me. Now, if you look at my Facebook page and go back to December, you'll see there's a picture of me with this gentleman called Peter Lee celebrating 25 years of friendship. That's the guy, by the way. That's the same person. It's on my Facebook page now. And for 25 years we've been in business together. We've done business together. But on the first time we met, I actually insulted without knowing. In Britain, we're pretty used to taking a business card and throwing it across the table. It's not how many countries do it. Business cards are revered, and you hand them out with 2 things. So acting like the brand isn't just what you think in terms of being on time, being polite, saying thank you, whatever. It's about the culture of the country you're going to. And the beauty of the internet now is that you can very quickly find out. Keep my eye on the time here. So you've got to protect it. You've got to protect your brand like it's your baby or your puppy or whatever it may be. But that's what it is. Your brand is your baby. You just can't let anybody reproduce it, copy it, take it. And the really interesting thing is about mistakes. And resellers is a really good example. You walk around here, you've got a product, and somebody says, oh, I love it, or whatever, and that could be your reseller. The problem with resellers is they're not as invested. It's like handing your baby to a babysitter. I mean, they're going to be careful, but if it cries a bit, they're not going to be that interested. And your brand, you need to think of the brand in that way. So resellers are great, but the problem is they're not fully invested. They've not had the 5 years of blood, sweat, and tears of getting this thing to market, and they've got no real risk. So one of the mistakes I've made over the years is appointing resellers, flying to all over the world to go and see these people, sitting down, and it all sounds amazing. It all sounds incredible. We're going to sell so much. We're going to be rich. We're going to have dinners. All going to be amazing. And you come back, and 3 months later, there's nothing. There's zero. Why? Because they've got another 10 things to sell. So one of the mistakes I made was allowing people to resell our products with no skin in the game. So now if somebody wants to resell something, you got to write a check. You're going to have to show me you're as serious as we are, no matter where you are. So one mistake was not getting skin in the game. The second mistake was ever giving out exclusive reseller agreements, because you get seduced by the riches and the wonder of these amazing resellers around the world. But the reality is you can be your own reseller now. If you look at, there's an interesting company I looked at last night, which is like a virtual phone service. I think it was called Grasshopper or something. And I actually went online. I needed a phone number for Brazil. We were talking about Brazil earlier. I needed a phone number for Brazil that would ring a US phone number. And I go online, and effectively it's kind of confusing now. It tells me I can deal with the US, but if it's in the US, so I can't have a UK number. I can deal with the UK, but I need 2 accounts. And I'm thinking, what is this? So I email saying, look, here's what I want. I basically want to buy this thing. And the UK guy emails back saying, well, we're not really set up right here yet. In fact, it's all a bit disorganized, but go online if you want. Well, I mean, that's just destroyed, you know, Grasshopper as a company in the US spend, I'm sure, millions on marketing and protecting their brand. And some helpful, down-to-earth, nice guy has basically just chucked it in the toilet. And that's one of the challenges, and an easy mistake to make is not protecting your brand. And I think Nike do an amazing job of it. I mean, it's really simple. We know that. It's what we call cognitive dissonance. It's basically, you know, thinking about this brand and what it means. Now, some of you are thinking, I've got him here because they use child labor and wherever. But the reality is Nike do an amazing job. And, you know, I live in Chicago, and we had the marathon maybe 2 months ago. And, no, I didn't enter, obviously, clearly. But after, you know, kind of most of it had passed, I did wander down Michigan Avenue, which they call the Magnificent Mile. And on the right-hand side is a huge Nike store. And as people, which I find amazing, they've run a marathon, then they actually go for a walk afterwards. I would need an ambulance. That as they're walking past the Nike store, they're ringing bells at the Nike store, congratulating people. And inside the Nike store, they're offering, you know, Lucozade, like, well, Gatorade and drinks and food and whatever, and round of applause as they walk in. It was the most amazing thing. And they didn't look at people's shoes first and say, are you wearing Adidas or Reebok? They just said, you know, well done, you've done this. And that's what Nike stand for, just do it. Now, you need to be as paranoid, as I call it, or passionate about your brand globally as Nike are, and you need to deal with things that crop up. And as I've just talked about, you know, my experience at this hotel, you know, a good example is the best sermon. If you're going to try and sell overseas and you're trying to expand your market, you've got to give examples as to how you started in one country and how it might transpose into the other. There's no point in just saying, okay, well, we've got 63 million people, you've got 363 million people, do the math, isn't it going to be great? Which is a mistake everyone makes going to the US. And I think the other challenge is, if you're going to go to the US, anybody, that this is the litigious society in the world. We went there 4 years ago with a laptop and a dream. And I think we spent the first 3 years in litigation with somebody because we sneezed in the wrong direction. And I don't exaggerate. The competitive market in the US is such that if somebody doesn't want you in their marketplace, they can sue you for no reason, keep running up your bills, and at the end of it, just stop and say, well, that was fun. Because in the US, loser doesn't pay. Here, the system is much better. You sue somebody and you lose, then you get to pay their costs. In the US, it's just, basically, it's not pretty. And, you know, tort reform, so tort is, you know, this kind of litigation on contract, is kind of the biggest thing in the US apart from healthcare. So what I'm saying is, if you're going to go to the US, you've got to be aware that some people will use their mighty checkbooks. It's like a game of, everyone plays poker or whatever. But we used to play poker for £5 and you get a certain amount of chips. But if somebody sat down poker and I had a full house, or whatever the best hand is, a royal flush, and I bet £1, and somebody said 1,000, I'm going to go out. I've got no choice but to go out. Even though I know I've got the winning hand, I have to go out. It's what we call betting with the wallet. Now, that's a big part of the US. People can bet with their wallet because they're so large, they can tie you up in litigation for the rest of your life. So the clear thing is, when you go there, know exactly what you're doing when you go overseas. My second piece of advice is, don't put something in writing, i.e. email, that you would like to hear read out in court. Now think about every email you ever write, and now imagine you're on the witness stand and the opposing counsel says, can you read this email you wrote? Now, I'm all for amusing emails, and I've got to tell you, it's a little less amusing when you've got to now read this thing out in court. So what's amusing at the time, under things like discovery, becomes very unfunny later on. So that's just another thing to think about. Key part about this is understanding your customers' other countries. And I love this awkward graphic, I act differently around you. I love that, this imagery. And this is because, you know, what we're saying is you don't know the real me. You know, when you look at who you buy from, you want people to get you. So a good example is a great site. I do a thing on e-commerce, which is a great site of a dog accessory site. And they're genius. You go to the dog site the first time, and it says, what dog have you got? Is it big, small? Big, small, big, medium, or small, whatever. That's all it asks you. What it then does is it presents content to you for the size of the dog you've got. Because there's no point in you saying, I've got a big dog and it's sending you a collar for a Chihuahua. It's really brilliant. And this is the same thing. If somebody comes to your site and they say they're from France or Germany, don't present them content that's in English or products that are only available in England. So you've got to find out what you know about your customers of other countries. And you'll hear a thing called CRM, Customer Relationship Management, and there's probably 100 people here that are going to try and sell you software, you know, to do better CRM, Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics or whatever all the others are called. But actually, all it really means is just remember your customers. Who is your customer? What are they called? How do I contact them? What do they do? Some tiny details. And for you guys are all way too young, but in the old days, we would have like a little set of postcards on our desk, and we'd have the name of the customer, what they bought, and you know what the kids were called, and did they play golf or didn't play golf. That's CRM, remembering your customers. And it's absolutely key. And so CRM and targeted marketing, when you're trying to go overseas, are the most important thing. Understand your customers and target, because there's no point selling small collars to large dog owners. And it's about focus. The more you focus on what's going to deliver value, the better you'll do. So it's all very well having this focus of this tiny little opportunity here, but you know, if you aim big and focus. Now, in direct marketing, I don't know if people are familiar, but we talk about the bullseye of data. So let's say that we're all here now, and we're all coffee drinkers, and we're all really, really thirsty. Then if somebody sent us a tweet saying on stand just over there, coffee for thirsty people, £1, that's about the bullseye of targeted marketing. Now the trouble is you can't run a business on whatever the 25, 30 of us is. So you're going to have to go a bit further out. So you're then going to be saying, okay, well, I want people slightly wider, and I don't know if they're coffee drinkers, but I know they're thirsty. And then you're going to go even further out. So I don't know if they're even thirsty, but I know they're people. And that's basically direct marketing. And if in the old days of buying lists, you would buy lists based. So I'll give you an example. One of our businesses called Our Word Tool. A key market, if we said the real niche of Our Word Tool is somebody aged between 14 and 22 that's doing design, that has expressed an interest or has uploaded photographs, and is active on 2 or more social networks. It's pretty niche. What we're saying is I want to create content, which is the solution we have. Well, a quick search on Facebook gives us 3 million people just on that tiny targeted area. So we're going to spend our money, we spend it there rather than spending it on wide areas. The challenge you have right now is people with emails, as we all do, you unsubscribe quick. You either delete it or unsubscribe it. It's what happens. And so being targeted and being really clear with a message is absolutely vital, because you think, okay, well, I'll send out a quick email. If it's irrelevant, you're losing the customer forever. But what's really important is a triggered email message gets this 119% higher click-through, so more than double if it's triggered based on something. So somebody inquires, somebody orders, it's going to get opened. Now, here's an amazing statistic. If somebody sends an inquiry onto your website and you answer that, so through a form or whatever, and you answer that within 5 minutes, you have a 20 times greater chance of receiving the order than anything after that. Now, why is that? Because at the point that I'm searching for a hotel in Birmingham, I need the hotel in Birmingham there and then, that minute. I don't need it in 10 minutes' time. So by the time, and if I fill a form in, or for a cooker or whatever it may be, if I fill the form in and they don't get back to me, well, I'm already online and bought it somewhere else. I've gone to Amazon, one click, and I'm done. So, and the typical average, if you ask yourself this and ask your colleagues, is probably 2 to 3 days, by the way. It's 2 to 3 days before most web forms are responded to. Well, you've got 5 minutes. You've also got to recognize that if you're exporting, you need to kind of make sure the email arrives at the time people are going to look at it. Now, why? Well, because most of us, if we're honest, leave our phones on all night. And many of us leave them not on silent because kids or family or mums or dads or whatever it may be, they're not on silent. Well, if you're going to send an e-blast out to the US at 3 in the morning, it's going to upset somebody. But by the same token, 3 in the afternoon is not very good either. So you've got to think, okay, well, what's the time to get, if I'm getting to a decision maker, actually the best time is probably either 8 in the morning or 6 in the evening when their desk is clearer. But just think about what that is, whatever that time is. The good thing about this is if you actually manage CRM and target, these are proven stats, 41% revenue increase by salesperson, 27% customer retention, 23% lower sales and marketing costs. So stuff that costs you nothing to do, gives you these incredible results. And this stuff drops through to the bottom line. It's proven, and smarter people than me have put together this research. But my favorite thing is that, me included, more than half people will pay more for a better experience. Now, here's the thing. Anything any of you have bought, you could have bought cheaper. You know it, you just didn't. Why? Because you enjoyed the experience. It's why you go to certain restaurants, go to certain car garages rather than others, go to certain hotels and buy certain beers or drinks or whatever. It's why you do it. But everything you buy, you could get from Costco cheaper than you can from Waitrose or Tesco or Sainsbury's. You can get cheaper from Aldi or Lidl. You can get every single car cheaper. But you don't, and I don't. Why? Because I value my time. And those of you who have read, there's a great book, Freakonomics, which basically, say if you're buying it, is what do you prefer more, the $5 in your hand or the cappuccino? Which one do you prefer more? And it's an amazing thing, because if I'm really thirsty right now and I need a cappuccino, I'll pay $10. But I'll pay 11, no. But I'll pay 10. And that's the whole basis of economics, is that, you know what, at a certain point, I'm happy. I know I'm overpaying. In fact, you pay more in service stations for Big Mac and fries, which is my kind of favorite guilty pleasure, in the UK on service stations than you do in the high street. I don't know, why is that? Because, well, they know I've driven, I'm bored, I've been stuck in traffic, and now I'm hungry. Well, guess what? I'm going to pay £1.50 more. Okay? 86% break ties after a bad experience. Now, that's an amazing thing, but we're lazy as people. You know, we've got I'm going to get this on film, but we've got a builder that's the worst builder in the world, or contractor. He's just the worst contractor in the world. He has been working for me for 20 years now. But for 20 years, he's been the worst builder in the world, but it's just easy for me to go there. But at a certain point, a tipping point, which is, you know what, I'm done. The next job he's not getting. And that's what happens eventually, no matter how easy you make it people. If your service isn't good, no matter what you do, they're going to go. And what's all this lead to? It leads to you've got to turn your customers into fans. You've got to let them do your work for them. If you look at the fantastic companies that exist now, be it the Ubers or the Deliveroos or the Lyfts, whatever, they've turned their customers into fans. I don't know how many people who here use Uber, but Uber is this fantastic ride-sharing service or taxi service around the world that's full of litigation as well. But as soon as somebody signs up for Uber, what happens is they tell 10 friends, oh, I used Uber, it was amazing. And they turn customers into fans. It's why they've got a 40 billion valuation for a business that loses a lot of money. But that's the challenge we have. We've got to take our brand, protect it, grow it, and expand it while turning customers into fans. That's me. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to connect on Twitter or LinkedIn or any of these other amazing social networks.